RWBY, Volume 6, Episode 2, Uncovered. What happens? We start off with Cinder waking up in some water. After crawling out, she finds her way outside Haven's vault where she encounters some unlucky background character. We then cut to a flashback of the heroes planning the trip to Atlas, during which Oz explains the lamp can answer 3 questions every 100 years, and that the questions have been used up already. Back in the present, the kids are unhappy with their current situation. Ozpin tries to defend himself from the girls' questioning until Oscar takes control and instructs RWBY on how to summon the being in the relic, Jinn. We then transition back to Cinder as she makes her way to the hangout of Little Miss Malachite, a gang leader able to collect intel for a price. Little Miss agrees to help while also hinting that someone's looking for Cinder before we jump back to the heroes. Jinn reveals she can answer 2 questions and RWBY asks to know what Oz is hiding. This sends the team into a flashback as it's revealed we will be learning about Salem in the next episode. Yay! Cinders Alive! I think we all knew she'd be okay since she's pretty obviously featured in the volume poster.
It's gotta be me!
But I am glad that arguably the main antagonist can return so the actual heroes can fight her in the show sometime. Even though she really should be dead. No aura, hit water from a height that would cause internal damage, should have drowned by now. Maybe her semblance is conveniently surviving events that should be fatal. Too weak to stand but able to punch your way through rock? I'm guessing the Grim arm is doing all the work, but I also have to wonder how she managed to lose her fight with Raven when she's effectively got a superpowered weapon attached to her. Run, you fool! Your design is way too uninteresting to let you come out of this alive.
I mean, bright side, we finally get out of this house.
It's cute of them to acknowledge our complaints from the last volume. The kids are just sitting around a house for the whole thing. But it's also kind of annoying that they seem to think making a joke about it makes it okay. At least it's not a problem for this volume, so it seems they've learned the downsides to keeping their main cast trapped in one location for the entire volume.
And without the Spring Maiden here to seal the relic back in its vault, it's our best option.
Shouldn't Ozpin be able to do that? It's his magic that allows the maidens to open and close them. Shouldn't he be able to do all that too? He mentioned that his power is running out, but the show also really wants us to think Oz is a pathological liar, so I find it hard to believe he doesn't have enough magic juice to close a fancy door. That aside, why is Atlas their best option? Is it because of their closed borders? Pretty sure that wouldn't stop the human wrecking ball, a poisonous guy who doesn't care about personal space, and makes you see hallucinations. Menagerie being isolated from the main continents makes it just as safe as Atlas's closed borders, and its super scary, way tougher than Vacuo desert would be a great place to hide the relic of give me all the answers. Or just take it to Beacon, seeing as even with the destruction of the school and constant searching of the Grim, they still can't find that relic. Stick this one there and keep them both safe. I just don't understand why Atlas is considered the safest place to go when it's where not sure if he can be trusted Ironwood is, and is apparently the only place on Remnant with an overabundance of political and racial issues. Getting to ask 3 questions is a fun spin on the genie's lamp granting 3 wishes. The show tends to just ignore the fairy tales these characters are based on, so it's nice that Jinn and her lamp clearly play with her original story in a relevant way to the plot.
Can we ask for more questions? Can we ask for more questions?
They're not wishes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the first good joke in RWBY since Volume 2. I don't understand how a comedy-based company can do so poorly with its humor in RWBY, but this volume does do a lot better job with that than they have been. What is Ozpin looking at? Nice transition. I think it was a mistake to move the conversation away from Maria so quickly. We're just getting introduced to her and the writers insist on throwing the plot at us instead. Maria is along for this whole adventure to Argus, but we don't get any real info on her until episode 7. I mean, we learn a bit about her during the gang's adventure on the farm, like how she's sassy and quick on her feet, but we don't really get to know much about her anytime soon. The kids just accept Maria into the group, but the writers seem to have forgotten that the audience doesn't know this character yet. Does RT know there are different ways people can stand when they're upset? Okay, I really don't like how they just have Yang turn into a bitch whenever it comes to Ozpin. Raven tells her to start asking more questions, and even though Yang apparently doesn't care about her anymore, she tries following Raven's advice so hard it's like she's got something to prove. But she can't even ask more questions well. Instead, she just yells at the guy constantly. Aside from how many questions can we ask the lamp, we haven't seen Oz lie about anything. Withholding info from the girls makes sense when you hear his reason for it. Yang being such a cock about all this just makes me side with Oz, which is bad since it seems like RT is using the scene to sort of corner Ozpin. Bombard him with questions until his true nature comes out, but they just utterly fail at it by having our heroes behave totally unreasonably. I didn't want to worry you by saying the relic will attract Grimm. Fuck you! Why is Yang so upset that Oz chose to keep Leo's villainy a secret? She didn't know the guy. Hell, she never even spoke to him. Why does she care so much how his friends wanted him to be remembered? Would Yang be so upset to learn Blake's new friend had tried to kidnap her? Would she get this mad to learn Blake had hit Sun? Is it an issue that Weiss ran away from home by paying off a guy smuggling dust? Yang's double standards on whose villainy is acceptable is awfully convenient to push this argument forward. Yang's opinions aside, heroes always get a pass on their crimes in the show for no reason except they're a good guy, and that's a problem. But perhaps that's a problem that'd be better suited to discuss when the team decides to become spies.
So all those times you talked about having faith in humanity, that was just for everyone else?
Having difficulties trusting a group of hot-headed teens who keep yelling at him is different from having faith in humanity, and the fact that everyone in the scene pretends otherwise is really dumb and contrived. If you want the audience to start questioning Ozpin's motives and morals, then you have to actually give us a reason to do so. Don't just have all the girls talk like they know better than him all the time. The relationship between Oscar and Ozpin is one of the most interesting parts of the show so far, and seeing Oscar able to take control away from Oz here only builds intrigue. Great job. Why doesn't Jin come out when Oscar says it? Do you have to be holding the relic for it to work? Well, the effect of the snow stopping to show that time is in a standstill is really effective. 10 out of 10. Can you tell that all the writers and directors for the show are dudes? The fact that Hazel's photo here is the only one that's an illustration and not a screenshot makes it look super out of place. Fun fact, this gang member looks exactly like me. And that's not important, but I thought it was exciting. I wonder if Little Miss Malachite has any relation to the Malachite twins we've seen before. Side note, if they're gonna bring back useless characters like Neo, bring back these two, cause their outfits are super cute. I really like how Cinder and Little Miss Malachite interact. Cinder's haughty, better-than-you attitude doesn't work here. They finally put Cinder against someone who she can't just boss around, and it's interesting seeing how shittily Cinder does in this sort of situation. Unfortunately, that doesn't last. Rather than explore Cinder dealing with the loss of all of her power and clout, forced to hide and ask for help, they just throw a new lackey at her and she continues on as normal again. The writer's insistence on keeping Cinder unchanged despite her numerous chances for character growth is downright baffling. Cinder's response to Little Miss's question about how she learned to handle her fear of spiders being learned to kill them is a great look into Cinder's character. It implies that Cinder did just that with whatever had kept her down in the past and now sees violence as the only way to get what she wants. Except we definitely already knew that, because she always jumps to violence.
And you will continue to do so.
You'll know what you need when you need to know. Of course, if I'm wrong.
Why do we get a second scene of showing off all the spider tattoos? When Cinder enters the tavern, we take a second to look at a bunch of background characters with the spider tattoos clearly on display. But then Cinder does it again with this shocked look on her face like she's just noticed the spider theme. Is the point of this scene to show us how dumb Cinder is?
Little Miss, we already know where they are. That big guy asked about them last week.
I know we know.
What big guy? The only big guy in the main cast is Hazel, and there's no reason for him to be asking for the whereabouts of the rando kids who were hanging with Ozpin, especially since Cinder doesn't offer a pic of Oscar to Little Miss. Not to mention, it seems he's been heading back to the Castle of Villainy with Emerald and Mercury this whole time. Why would they stop their retreat to ask about the location of the kids who they just lost to? There really isn't anyone else in the cast who I'd think to describe as a big guy aside from Gira, Yatsuhashi, Cardin, and this White Fang lieutenant, and 3 of those characters don't really exist in the show anymore. Unless they're planning on introducing another big guy to the cast, this line means nothing to the audience. I can't help but wish she had said, "Little Miss, we already know where they are. That Faunus guy asked about him last week," because that would actually make sense to the volume's plot. Adam's chasing down the girls. Why not allude to him being the one asking for their location? Learning Oz had lied about the amount of questions is a step towards getting the audience to stop believing him, and that's good. But they've done too good of a job giving Ozpin reasonable excuses for his behavior so far that I still can't help but see him as a trustworthy guy. And then they just have him jettison himself out of the show after episode 3, meaning this sort of thing can't even be followed up on. The kids learn that he definitively lied to them and then are forced to be unable to confront him on it. They finally get the audience to maybe start seeing Oz in a negative light and then throw that plot point out the window for the rest of the volume. I hate that the girls are just a hive mind like this. They all always feel the same way about any event that happens to them. All the girls jump to weapons drawn at Crow for saying, "Hey?" Really? Why do they all react like that? Why doesn't RWBY yell at them for aiming their weapons at her beloved uncle? Why is Yang ready to attack him when last volume she yelled at Raven for simply insulting her family? Calling them dumb is cause for a red-eyed temper tantrum, but it's all fine to outright attack the man for standing too close to Ozpin? And it's not just being too eager to attack Crow. All 7 of the kids agree with big moments like this constantly. They all stop trusting Ozpin when they learn the relic can attract Grimm. They all celebrate the return of Oscar without question. They all think Ozpin's a bad guy when they learn Ozma's backstory. Literally no one sits there and thinks, man, Ozma's had a rough life. Instead, each character reacts the same way to the news of Ozma and Salem's past, the only difference being if it's flavored with loud, edgy, hot-headed, bougie, quiet, innocent, or cat. They only react like individuals to either comedy or the interrelationships between the group. The kids never have a disagreement on important things. Without disagreement, there's no discourse or conflict within the group. They all just permanently agree and continue with the same opinion as each other forever. That means none of them offer anything unique to any given situation. Without differing perspectives, the cast is just 7 different character designs believing and doing the same thing. What's the point of having so many characters in the main group when they all behave like the same character when it comes to the plot? I'm impressed RWBY didn't ask a stupid question. I expected something like, is Ozpin lying to us? Or something along those lines. A question that would give us very little new information. But instead, RWBY prompts the most important and interesting lore dump in the whole show with 1 sentence. Good job. Really? You're all ready to shoot down Crow after he says 1 word slowly, but Ozpin's able to announce his attack before running at RWBY and you all just look at the guy dumbfounded? Fix your priorities, girls. Be on high alert for the guy you all arbitrarily hate, not the blatantly just as confused family member. RWBY may use cliffhangers too frequently, but this might be the best one the show's had so far. We're not just blue-balled on some cheap combat, but rather this leads the viewer into the topic of the next episode while also building excitement for it. Well done. And so, that was Uncovered. I've noticed a trend of me really laying into the second episode of a volume just to reveal I actually liked it by the end, and it's no different here. I liked that the plot actually continued forward, a rarity for not being the finale of the volume, and it wasn't just the train crash's aftermath. We got to jump into Cinder's plot as well. We learned a lot of important and interesting new stuff this episode. What the relic does, how it works, a bit about Ozpin's character, a look into the underground of Haven. The episode does a lot without feeling bloated or rushed, which is really nice. Honestly, the thing holding the episode back is the writing. Characters giving up their individuality for convenience of pushing the plot forward. Dialogue that prioritizes having the cast convey an emotion over offering insight to their character or responding naturally to each other. The episode's a bit like pointillism. Look at it from a distance and everything seems fine, but once you get closer to look at the details, it stops making so much sense to a degree. I wouldn't call it a bad episode, in fact I'd say it's well done, but sitting through the dialogue a second time is significantly less entertaining than a first run, as the important info getting repeated fails to hide the boring visuals of walking in the snow, and the lack of nuance in the script keeps the lore-heavy scenes from having any standout character moments. It's a competent episode for sure. Now RT just needs to zero in on putting some character into their conversations, even the plot-heavy ones.
I kinda like the shirt. Do you fear me?
Yeah, I feel you.
No, do you fear me? Like, are you scared of me? You're scared of me!
No, you scared of
Oh,
me?
jeez.
I also don't know if you can hear the rain. It's raining, while also building excitement for it. Well done. Not like me, that was a bad take. Don't use that one. Hopefully one of those are good. Are good? Is good? Fuck.